Welcome back to Sadak, the Achiever. So all of you, today we'll be continuing our first chapter of chemistry, that is atomic structure, right? So in the previous lecture, we have discussed the subatomic particles, right? Where we have discussed what is an atom, right? What are the subatomic particles and how we discovered them, and even the properties of the subatomic particles were also discovered, right? So in today's lecture, we'll start with these atomic models. So what are these atomic models? Atomic models are nothing but how these subatomic particles were arranged in them, right? To give that standard atomic structures, right? What happened? The scientists tried to give their own model. So one of them is J.J. Thomson. One of them is J.J. Thomson. So in the year 1898, he gave the Thomson model, and he said that the atom, right, is in a spherical shape. The atom is in a spherical shape, right? And this sphere is having a radius approximately 10 to the power of minus 10 meters. The radius of an atom is around 10 to the power of minus 10 meters. And he said that the positive charge in this atom, positive charge in this atom is uniformly distributed all over the atom. Okay, positive charge అనేది యూనిఫామ్ గా డిస్ట్రిబ్యూట్ అయ్యి ఉంది అని చెప్పేసి థామ్సన్ ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ చేశాడు. యూనిఫామ్లీ డిస్ట్రిబ్యూటెడ్, రైట్? అండ్ కమింగ్ టు ద నెగిటివ్ ఛార్జ్, సో ఈ నెగిటివ్ ఛార్జ్ అనేది టు గివ్ ద electrostatic condition, or we say the electrically static condition of this atom, the negative charge is arranged. So he didn't explain in what way that they are arranged, but he said that these electrons, or we say negative charge, is arranged in a manner where the atom is become electrically static. So the atom, the negative charge is arranged in a electrostatic condition, electrostatic arrangement. We say electrostatic arrangement. Okay, so this is how the positive charge and negative charge has arrived here, arranged in this Thomson model, right? And another important point that he has explained here, right, that is the mass of this atom. Okay, the mass of this atom is uniform throughout the atom. So mass is uniform all over the atom. Okay, so by his theorems, by his points, we can compare his Thomson model with the plum pudding name, or with the watermelon or the raisin pudding model. So it has got the another names that are plum pudding model, plum pudding model, or the raisin pudding model, or we say the watermelon model, watermelon model. So if you can see that plum, right, in puddings, how the plums are arranged in the same fashion, the electrons are arranged in a positively charged of the atom. So positive charge is uniformly distributed in that. Likewise, the seeds of the watermelon, right, the seeds of the watermelon, like these seeds are is equals to electrons. If you can say that negatively charged, those are electrons, right? And the pudding is nothing but the is positive charge. So that's why this Thomson model has got the names plum pudding or raisin pudding or the watermelon also. Okay, so Thomson was able to explain the neutrality of the atom. Neutrality means the atom is able to be in neutral condition by his electrostatic arrangement. He said that positive charge and negative charge are arranged in a manner where the atom is in electrostatic arrangement, right? So we can say that the atom is neutrally, or neutrality of atom is explained by him, right? But his one of these drawback is nothing but how the atom is being able to stable, right? How the atom is stable. So no explanation for the stability of this atom. So this is his one of these drawbacks. Okay, so this is the Thomson model. So next we have the Rutherford's nuclear model. So Rutherford nuclear model, if you can see that nuclear model, he performed an experiment called the alpha particle scattering experiment. Alpha particle scattering experiment. In previous lecture we have discussed the, what is that? Particulate nature of electricity. By using that we have used the, what is that experiment name? Cathode ray discharge tube, right? So by using that cathode ray discharge tube principles, what he did, he used that alpha particle scattering experiment, where if you can see that experiment set up here, see here. So this is a radioactive substance here where he has generated the alpha particles. So these are the alpha particles here, okay? And here he arranged a slit here where this alpha particle would enter into and they bombard to the thin plate of gold, or we say thin foil of the gold, right? And whenever these alpha particles are bombarding this foil, right, that foil, what happens, the alpha particles will deflect, right? So depending on the deflections or the depending on the path followed by these alpha particles, right, he gave a nuclear model of an atom. So let us see that. So what is that? He said that he in this experiment, if you can see that, he has taken alpha particles from an radioactive material, right? And these alpha particles got bombarded with thin sheet of or thin foil of gold, right? Thin means the thickness of that foil is around 100 nanometers, very thin gold foil. Okay, so after that what he did, he arranged a photoelectric plate, or we say the fluorescent plate, the fluorescent plate, same as in previous experiments that we have seen, the fluorescent plate made up of zinc sulfide, right? And this fluorescent plate that you have arranged in this manner. So what happened? So this experiment, while performing this experiment, what happened? He observed these movement of these alpha particles. Okay, how these alpha particles are behaving when they are bombarding this gold foil. Okay, and whenever these alpha particles are, right, bombarding, or we say falling on this deflection screen. Okay, what is that deflection screen? That is nothing but the fluorescent screen, right? Fluorescent screen. So what happens, these alpha particles, or we say deflected alpha particles, are causing a bright light, bright spots, simply we say the tiny bright spots on that screen. Okay, so this is the experiment, and this is how he has performed this experiment. Then what are the observations that he made and what are the conclusions? So first observation that he made in his experiment, that is first one, the most of the alpha particles, if you can see that here, these lines, these are traveling in straight, right? Means most of the alpha particles are traveling straight path, means no deflection in these lines or in these alpha particles, right? And very few, or we say some alpha particles are deflecting, here with small angles, deflecting with small angles, the deflection of the alpha particles is small, right? And third observation that he made is very few particles, alpha particles, right? That too, we can say that in a number, if we can say number, that is 1 in 20,000 alpha particles, right, are, what are they doing? Are bouncing back, right? Are bouncing back. If these alpha particles are striking this like this here, right? So what are they doing? They are bouncing back in a same like this, bouncing back, or we can say the angle of 180 degrees, angle of 180 degrees. So these are the main three observations that he made here. So if you can see that in the first case, so these are the lines, alpha particles that are moving here, right? These are the alpha particles here which are moving in a straight path, right? In the second case, very small angle means here, right here, these are the very small angles that we can take, and the bouncing back, like here also you can take, or here also you can take examples for that, right? So this is how the observation that he made here. Then what are the conclusion that he came by observing these three observations? So first conclusion that he made is most of the space of an atom is empty. He said that most space is empty, of an atom is empty. Most space of the atom is empty because most of the alpha particles are following the straight path. Okay. Next, some deflecting small angles. So the small deflection is due to enormous positive charge repulsion. Why? Because the alpha particles, right? These alpha particles are nothing but positively charged ions, radioactive ions, positive charge radioactive particles. Okay, so these are positively charged, right? Now the atom has positive charge as well as the negative charge. So he's saying that the small deflection are due to the enormous positive charge repulsions. Means whatever the positive charge that we have here in that atom, those atoms, right, we know that positive will be, right, repulsing with positive, and positive will be adding with the negative, right? Means same charges repulse, right? Repulsion occurs, and the different charges attract. So he's saying that as the alpha particles are positive, right? So the whatever the positive charge is present in that atom, right? Because of that repulsion, there is a small deflection in the alpha particles, right? And these, he said that small deflection is due to the enormous positive charge repulsion. So whatever the charge, positive charge is there, which is very enormous, and due to that the small deflection in that alpha particle is happening, and that too very, or we say very small amount of alpha particles. Next, he said that these alpha particles are completely bouncing back due to that the positive charge is concentrated at the center of this atom, concentrated at the center of the atom, right? So that is his observations and the conclusions about this. Okay, so after these observations and conclusions, he came and he proposed that the postulates of this model, the Rutherford nuclear model, he said that first one, most of the empty, right? And he said in the second point, he said that the negative charge, or we say the positive charge is concentrated at the center, of the atom, and he named it as the nucleus. Okay, and the positive charge that we already know after the discovery of protons, we say that nucleons, this nucleus is having protons, those are positively charged, and the neutrons, so these are called as the nucleons, right? And another postulate of this Rutherford nuclear model is the negative charge revolving around the nucleus, okay, revolving around the nucleus in a circular path, revolving around the nucleus in a circular path with very high speed, right? And he said that the radius of the atom is, already he said that minus 10 to the power of minus 10 meters, right? The nucleus is very small, right? It much smaller than the atom, that is 10 to the power of minus 15 meters. So the nucleus is very small, that is 10 to the power of minus 10 meters. So if you can take an example, if you take a cricket ball, right, which is of this size, right, and this is our nucleus, okay, will be our nucleus, and the radius will be around the 5 kilometers distant from this nucleus. So this will be 5 kilometers. So that much big will be the atom and the nucleus, okay. So the difference between the radius of nucleus and atom is very huge. So he's saying that that's why the atom is having very, right, most of the space is empty, nucleus is having the positive charge, and the electrons are revolving around it with very high speed. Radius and nucleus, Rutherford gave another point where he said that this nucleus and these electrons, right, these are revolving in this manner, right? So these two are having the, or we say these two are having bond between them by the electrostatic force of attraction, electrostatic force of attraction. So the force between these nucleus, okay, and these electrons is due to the electrostatic force of attraction. That because of that electrostatic force, this electron is being able to be rotating. That is what he explained. Okay, that is another point of this Rutherford nuclear model. So after that, what are the drawbacks of this Rutherford model? What are the drawbacks? So first one is the stability. So the stability was not able to explain, right? The stability of this atom was not able to explain by this Rutherford atomic model. What is that? So if you take that, this is our nucleus, so this is how the electrons are revolving around it. So if you apply the Coulombic force, onto this electron and the nucleus, okay, so this Coulombic force will be how? The Coulombic force is K into Q1 and Q2 divided by the R square. So K is nothing but the proportionality constant, and Q1 and Q2 are the charges of this electron and the nucleus, and the R is the distance, or we say the radius of this atom. So this equation, if you can observe this is same as the gravitational force formula. So what is that? That is G into m1 into m2 divided by R square, where G is the gravitational constant, m1 and m2 are the masses of the two objects, and R2 is the R is the radius of the, or we say the distance between the m1 and m2, right? So this is nothing but the formula that we use to find the gravitational force between sun and the planets, right? So or any two objects which are revolving in a circular path. So here, as he said that the objects, or we say the electrons, are revolving in the circular path with very high speed, right? So this model is also looking at the solar system, right? The lighter objects are revolving around the nucleus, not exactly as that, but the movement of the electrons and the nucleus. So the nucleus is acting as the sun, right? And the electrons are acting as the planets, right? So he said that these electrons are revolving in a orbits, that is nothing but, we said that fixed paths, right? So that orbits nothing but, we say the electrons are revolving in a orbits. Circular paths are the orbits, that he already explained. So here what happens? So if you apply to this Coulombic force or this setup of this nucleus and the electrons here, the electrostatic force or electrostatic theory of Maxwell, or we simply say the Maxwell's electrostatic theory. He said that by his theory, he said that if any charged particle is moving in a circular path, right? So when any object is moving in a circular path, it will automatically accelerated due to the force that is applied onto this object, right? If the object is moving in a speed, means it will have an acceleration, because there is a change in the direction at every point, right? Every point, if this will be our direction of the motion and this will be our force applied here. So what happens, it is changing its direction at every point, so it will ultimately acquire the acceleration, yes or no? So every time it will try to acquire the acceleration. So what happens? So when this object, right, is starting at this point, okay, this electron is starting at this point. Now when this is rotating in a circular path as well as it is having a very high speed, what happens? This particle, right, by using this formula, by using the theory, if any charge particle is moving in this direction, what happens? It will release the radioactive. It will release the radioactive charge. It will release it. It will release the radioactive charge. And what happens? As it is releasing the charge, it will lose some energy, right? So as it is losing some energy, what happens? It will, without following this path, as it has to follow that path, what happens? It will slowly becomes like this. Again, here also it will again lose some energy, right? Again it will come, and ultimately what happens? It will enter, or it will come into the, or it will fall into the nucleus here. So every time, as it is, if we apply the Maxwell's electrostatic theory, what happens? Any charged particle, this is a charged particle because this is the negatively charged electron. So as it is negatively charged electron, as by the theory, any charged particle, if it is rotating in a circular path, it will start releasing the radioactive charge, right? And because of that energy released, it will lose energy and it will ultimately fall into the nucleus. So it will ultimately become the same model of Thomson, right? So that's why the stability of the nucleus was not explained by this Rutherford. We can also think that if we can take that charge or the we can also take the electrons as the stable particles, because here in this sun and the planet section, what happens in that structure? The planets are not charged bodies, that's why they are not falling into the sun. Remember that point. Here the only electrons are charged particles, that's why they will fall into the nucleus. Okay, by the Maxwell's theory of electrostatic, right? So if we can take that electrons are stable, or we say that electrons are neutral particles which are not charged particles, then this structure of this Rutherford will be valid. But here the electrons are not charged particles, right? So that's why, as these are the charged particles, the Rutherford nuclear model is not giving the proper explanation for the stability of this atom, right? And another drawback of this model is nothing but what is the arrangement of these electrons, or we say the electronic arrangement or electronic configuration, as we know already, electronic configuration, how these electrons are configured in that atom. That was not explained by this Rutherford's model. So these are the two drawbacks of this Rutherford nuclear model. Okay, so this is about the Rutherford nuclear model. So next we have the atomic number. So this atomic number has been derived by using the protons, neutrons and the electrons, as well as the nucleus is known, right? In the nucleus we said the positive charge is in the nucleus and the electrons are revolving around the nucleus, right? So by that assumption and by that experimental proofs, we found that atomic number. So what is that atomic number Z? So atomic number Z is nothing but the number of protons in an atom is nothing but the atomic number. So how many number of protons are there? So that is nothing but the atomic number. Okay, simple. Atomic number is nothing but the number of protons. Okay, so next we have mass number. Mass number A is nothing but number of protons plus number of neutron. Okay, number of protons plus number of neutrons. So what is this number of protons and number of neutrons, or we say what do you call the combined, or where do we find these protons and neutrons? So we find these protons and neutrons in the nucleus, right? In the nucleus we find these two, we find these protons and neutrons in the nucleus, right? So we can say that so this is some X atom here, so this is my X atom here. So the atomic representation is represented by using the, here is A and here is Z. So what is that A that we have learned just now? That is the A is the mass number, Z is the atomic number, and this is our atom or this element that we are trying to express here. So AXZ, remember like this, AXZ. Okay, this is how we represent the atomic number. For example, if I say another element, now how can we write this X here? So what is Z? Z is nothing but number of, what is Z? Z is nothing but atomic number, so that is number of protons, right? And what is A? A is nothing but atomic mass or the mass number, right? Or the mass number. So how do we represent that? Let us write it here. So if you say this is my species or the atom, then number of protons, let us write the short down of that, P, right? Then mass number, what is mass number? Mass number we have learned just now, Z plus neutrons, right? Here Z plus neutrons. So what is the Z here? Z is nothing but again the atomic, what is that? Atomic number. So what is the atomic number? P. So we can also remember that P plus neutrons, and here is the P. So are we representing electrons anywhere? No. But we know that protons, neutrons and electrons, these are the three subatomic particles, and here protons are deciding how many electrons should be there. So in the nucleus we have the positive charge, as these are the positive charge, okay, as these are the positive charge, and the electrons are the negative charge. So as that atom has to be in a stable condition, right? Or we say the electrostatically stable condition, electrostatic condition, where that positive charge should be equal to the negative charge. So if we have P, that P will decide the electric number of electrons in that atom, electrostatic condition of that atom, right? This is what important thing that you have to remember here. So the protons will decide the number of electrons. Depending on the number of electrons, right, and number of neutrons will give us the mass number of that atom. Okay, so these are some important points we have to remember for the atomic representation. Okay, so next we have isobars. So here you know already that iso means same and the bars means it represents the mass. Okay, so isobars are nothing but the atoms which are having the same mass number, but different atomic numbers. For example, I will take the carbon and the nitrogen. Here. Okay, so the carbons same mass number. Mass number means will represent here. So if I write here, this is mass number, this is the atomic number. So mass number is different. So what is the mass number of what is the atomic number of carbon? That is 6 and nitrogen is 7. So the atomic number is 6 and atomic number is 7 of carbon and nitrogen, right? So the mass number of carbon is 14 and the mass number of nitrogen is 14. So these two are the isotopes, isobars. These two are called as the isobars here. Okay, so this is one of the examples of isobars. What is that? Same mass number. Bar means mass. Remember, bar means mass. Iso means same. Simple thing. So the bases are different. The mass are equal. Okay, that is one example. Next, come to the isotopes. Iso means same, right? And topes means the same neutrons, same number of neutrons. Same number of neutrons is nothing but the isotopes. Okay, why? Because if you say that, for an example, I will take an atom of hydrogen. First, I will explain the example how these will be different. So if this is our species, okay, so this is our Z and this is our A. So here another species of same atom, right? So Z will be here, Z is different, but here Z will be same. And here Z will be same, both cases, but these two will be different. Atomic mass number, right, will be different. These two are same, but these two will be different. Here these two are same, but these two will be different. Okay, so this is how the isotopes will be. So for example, if I take the hydrogen isotopes, so we know that hydrogen has one neutron, one proton and one electron. That's why it will be in a stable, right? This atomic number is 1 and the mass number is also 1. So these hydrogen has 3 isotopes, or this hydrogen is available in 3 different forms. Okay, so the first one is hydrogen 1 and 1. Okay, another is hydrogen 1 and 2. Another is hydrogen 1 and 3. So out of these 3 isotopes, 99.985% of total hydrogen, this hydrogen 1 will be available in our atmosphere. So out of all the 3 isotopes, this single isotope covers a 99.985%, right? And this will be available in 0.15%, and this is very rare. Okay, so this isotope is called as the protium. Okay, and this isotope is called as deuterium, and this isotope is called as tritium. Okay, now how these isotopes are formed here? So if you can see here, this is a Z, so Z will be same, so we are not bothered about Z here. Now how these numbers are changing here? So if you see that one electron, as hydrogen is stable here, one electron has one proton has one electron, so only here I can write it here, one electron plus 0 neutrons, one electron plus 0 neutrons, so that's why 1 here. Now here if you can see that one proton, so you will be having one electron obviously, plus one neutron. Okay, and here one proton, so there will be one electron, right, plus two neutrons. So this is how the isotopes of hydrogen are formed here. Okay, so I hope you understand this. So next we have example problem. Find the number of neutrons, protons present in the element. Okay, neutrons, protons present in the element. Okay, so first one, so let us start with the basic X, right? So this is our Z and this is our A. Okay, so this Z is nothing but number of protons, right? Number of protons, and this A is nothing but protons plus neutrons. Yes, now see here. So we know that 6, Z equals to 6, that is nothing but number of protons. Protons is equals to 6, right? So here C 6 over, or else we can write like this for better understanding. So this is my C, in the X place I wrote C at the P time. So P is equals to, what is that, 6 here, and this A is equals to 13. So which can be written in the form of, here P is 6 and this 13 is equals to P plus N, right? As we know the protons are P, neutrons are N. So here protons, if you substitute these proton numbers in this equation, what you will get, 13 minus 6 is equals to N. So the neutrons is equals to 7, and the protons are, how many protons, 6. So this is the first answer. Now coming to second answer, oxygen 6, 8 and 16 simply. So I will directly go into the step of this. So oxygen, so P, so this will be P is equals to 8, right, and this will be A is equals to 16. So this is oxygen, P is equals to 8, right? So this is 16 is equals to P plus N. So simply what can I do now? 16 minus 8 is equals to N, right? This is O and this is P is equals to 8. So finally, so the neutrons 8 and the protons are also 8, right? Next Mg, magnesium. So simply I will go into the now to this step. Chalo, Mg, P is equals to 12 and this is 24 equals to P plus N. So direct step. So here N value is 24 minus 12. This is Mg and here P is equals to 12. So the neutrons are 12 and the protons are 12, right? Now ferrous directly. So Fe, P is equals to 26 and here neutrons are equals to, what is that, A minus P. So 56 minus 26. So it will be neutrons are how much? 56 minus 26, 30, and the protons are how much? 26. Next, strontium. So direct step, I'm going to this direct step, SR. Here P is equals to 38, right? And this SR 88 is there, right? So it is N is equals to 88 minus 38. So it will be the neutrons. Neutrons are how much? 88 minus 38, that is 50, and the protons are 38. So this is how we'll find the number of neutrons and protons in an element. Okay. Next, very simple question. Complete the symbol for the atom. So we have Z, we have A. So start with this. Okay. So this is A and this is Z. Now, what is Z? 4, and what is A? 9. So here, what is the atomic number 4? What is the element named as atomic number 4? That is hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium. So that will be around beryllium. Simple, right? So next, X again, A is 35. Okay, A is 35 and Z is 17. So 17 atomic number is of, what is that? Chlorine. So Cl, that is 17 and 35. What is that atom? Chlorine. Electrons, protons and neutrons present in a species are equal to 18, 16, 16 respectively. Assign the proper symbol to the species. Okay, so this is a very important question. Like, it is quite a little different than previous ones. Okay, so first one, start with the basics. So electrons, so number of electrons 18, number of protons P is 16, and number of neutrons small n is it 16. So this is the given data. Now we have to find the symbol. So let us start from here. So first X. Okay, so in this X, this is our Z, this is our A. Start from basics, don't worry. Take your time, start from basics so that you will have a best clarity on this topic. So what is Z? Z is number of protons. So what is the number of protons? Let us write it here, P, and A is nothing but A is equals to P plus neutrons. Okay, so here this is my X. So what is the number of protons here? Number of protons is 16. So I am writing 16. Okay, number of protons is 16, right? Next, A, protons plus neutrons. So A is equals to, so what are the number of protons? 16 plus, what are the number of neutrons here? Number of neutrons are 16. So these are the 16. So how much is it? So this is X, 16 and 32. Okay, this is 16 and 32. So here, what is this 16? This is the atomic number, this is the atomic number, and this is the mass number. So what is the element which is of atomic number 16? That is sulfur, right? So that will be sulfur, right? 16 and 32, right? 16 and the 32. So this is our symbol of species. Okay, is it done here? No, because the number of electrons here is 18. Number of electron is 18. We know that to be an element on our atom, to be stable, right, it has to have the protons are equal to the electrons. This should have equal protons and the electrons, so that that element or that atom will be in a stable position, right? So here, as these electrons and protons are not equal, remember this, right? If the protons are, I will write it here, if the protons are greater than electrons, what happens? The electrons are very less, so this atom, right, will form a cation, which is nothing but positive ion, right? And if these protons are smaller than the number of electrons, then this will form an anion, which is nothing but the negative ion. So how do we find this cation anion here? So as these electrons are smaller than protons, so how many more protons are there or how many less electrons are there? Depending on that, if the number of electrons are some n, then if this is our atom, okay, so if in this case, if this is our atom, okay, so if say this is our Z and this is our A, so the cation will represent as N plus, okay, that is P minus E is equals to N. Difference between proton and electron is N in both the cases, let us say. So in this case, what happens? X, this is Z and this is A, right? So what will be the charge on it, or what will be the anion here? So that will be N minus. N minus. Right? Now come to this question here. Come to this question here. So remember this point. So in this question, now check here. P minus E. We know that P and E are not equal here, right? Not equal here. So here P is smaller than electrons. So we'll find this P minus E. P minus E equals to N, right? So how many P are there? P are 16. Let us say the 18 electrons minus 16 protons is equals to 2. So the N value is equals to 2. So as here we are getting, see here, P is less than E. P is less than E. Which case? This one. So it will be a anion. So that will be 2 minus. So we'll write this as sulfur 1632, right? 2 minus. So this is the complete answer, right? This is the complete answer of this question. Proper symbol to the species. So that's why he didn't mention an atom or an anion or a cation or any ion, right? He mentioned a species. So remember this important. Okay. So this is the today's lecture, all of you. So here today's quote is Abraham Lincoln's famous quote: the best way to predict your future is to create it. So before predicting your future, try to create it by starting from today, right? Work for it, create it by step, and ultimately you will predict your future and you will achieve it. Okay. So I hope you understand today's lecture. All of you, keep studying, happy learning, and all the best. Take care and see you soon, right? So everybody, thank you so much. We'll meet in the next class.